Hi, and welcome back to the Megan Taylor Creator Podcast. In this episode, I really wanted to go over my top tips for content creation and the framework that I use to ensure that I am being as efficient as I possibly can be without compromising on quality. And I think that's a lot of what people forget when they talk about content creation frameworks and how to create content efficiently is that efficiency is not actually the most important thing here. The most important aspect of content creation 100% of the time is providing your audience with quality content. And to me, quality content just means content that has value and that actually helps your target audience in some way. We'll talk later on about how you can ensure that your content is maintaining a top quality whilst also being efficient later, because those two are possible to do, as I found. This year, I set a goal to write 2 blog posts every week, and so far I have actually managed to achieve that goal. And the main reason I think is because I am using a content creation framework. I don't think I would be able to be as efficient, have really thought about the way that I'm creating content and how I'm managing and capturing my ideas beforehand. So if you want to make sure that you're consistently uploading content for your target audience so that you can meet your goals and grow your business with content marketing, then stay tuned because I'm going to show you exactly how to do that. And also, just as a side note, I've recently lost my voice over the weekend. It's kind of coming back now, but it definitely is I'm still struggling a little bit. So if I sound congested, it's probably why I am struggling a little bit, so please bear with me. But I really wanted to get this video made so that you would have a video to watch this week. So yeah, let's just get straight into it. So yeah, as you can see, I am currently in Notion, which is essentially a note-taking app that's a little bit different to other note-taking apps. I personally think that the capabilities are really advanced, and I've created a content strategy template that I use to essentially help me manage my entire content creation workflow. So the first step that I actually take to start creating a content strategy and actually executing campaigns in the long run is to create and add ideas into my idea bank. So I basically just created this idea bank once and it served me really well. So to give you a bit of a rundown, I have a column for the name of the piece of content. So that's just a working title. It might change eventually. And if it does change on the live piece of content, I will update that. But yeah, I just have a column for the name, a column for the format, which is the type of content that it's going to be. So whether it's a podcast or an ebook or a blog post. And if you want to add these properties in, you just click on the column and then just type it in. You have to change the actual property at the top of the column to, I think it is called the multi-select, but it essentially looks like a bullet point list and it will allow you to create different options which you can tag in your content. And you can see that I've done this throughout my entire content calendar. The next column is the content channel. So just signifies to me what channel my content will be distributed on, whether it's my podcast, whether it's my website or an email or social media, and what I'm actually going to start doing personally now that my social media pipeline is a little bit more chaotic because I'm using quite a lot of different channels. I'm actually going to start including the different social media channels as an option, a selection, so that I can really get down and see into what content is made for what channel specifically, because content repurposing, it's a very hot topic right now, but it's very important. If you want to manage to do all of this on different channels, you need to accept the fact that you're not going to be able to make new content every day and you are going to have to repurpose your content. So just having this column really helps me to identify what I have for each channel coming up and whether or not there's certain channels lacking as well, and if I need to add more content to that. Obviously, this is more of an idea bank, so nothing's really organized in an editorial sense, and I'll go through that later about how I do that, but it still helps identify whether I'm making enough content for each channel. The next column, which I also think is really important, and it's essentially a slightly lazier version but still important version of a content map, which is basically just a visualization tool that marketers like to use to actually understand where each piece of content fits into a specific campaign and how it basically facilitates that campaign and how it influences the user throughout the buyer's journey. So essentially, I've just put whether it's awareness, consideration, or decision stage content. And again, you could go one step further and do retention content as well, but my business doesn't really work like that. Retention for me personally comes from maintaining good relationships with clients and getting referrals. I don't feel the need to do as much retention stage content as, say, awareness or consideration stage, which is actually the bulk of my content and what I personally believe should be the bulk of your content as well. I also have a column for keywords, so this is especially important if I'm writing a blog post that's specifically for SEO and my website, and I want to make sure that I get it seen on Google and that it ranks highly. I can manage my keywords in this column. It's a little bit empty at the moment, but that's mainly because these ideas haven't actually come to fruition yet, and this actual particular idea bank is a little bit outdated. So that's kind of my fault, but it goes to show that not everyone's perfect and I'm not maintaining everything 100% of the time, but when I need it, it is here. And you'll also want to write down keywords for things like, say, Pinterest, which is also a search engine, or YouTube. YouTube is obviously owned by Google and you need to consider YouTube SEO if you want to do well on the platform. The next column that I have is just the status. So it's essentially, it helps me to understand whereabouts I am with making a piece of content. So I have not started, and then I have in progress, and then I also have done. Those three tags essentially just help me understand where I'm at with a piece of content, how much left I have to go, and you can actually go one step further as well, and as a needs to be updated. So say, for example, if you've got a really outdated piece of content on your website that you know needs to be outdated and it needs to be a priority, you can also add that here as well. And you can also see that I've got different colors for all of these tags too, so that just helps me understand as well. It just helps me differentiate between the tags a little bit further, because I am a very visual person, so I need to understand that. And then I obviously have a publication date, so this will help me really understand exactly what it is that I need to do and how much time I have. So Notion is actually very advanced when it comes to publication dates and understanding your project timeline. So as you can see, there's actually two little boxes here. So say, for example, if I click April the 11th to April the 14th, that is how long I have to work on a piece of content. And the way to get this up is by toggling on the end date section here. And then you can also include a time as well. I personally don't, unless it's a client project. But generally speaking, for my content, I don't really worry about time. I'm more just concerned about the dates and whether or not there is a solid and healthy content pipeline. And then you can also change the date format and time zones as well. That's really helpful for someone like me who has worked with clients in the States, which is obviously a very different time zone. It's helpful for me to kind of just get my head to understand when I'm managing their content calendar that that piece of content needs to go out at that time in that time zone, not in my time zone, if that makes sense. Finally, I also have a column for campaigns, and I personally like to do multiple campaigns at once, because I find that especially if you have multiple buyer personas, it's not necessarily enough to have just one campaign. And also you'll find that if you're launching anything, if you have a launch campaign coming up, you want to include that in here as well as a completely separate thing, and you can understand what pieces of content are going to be the bulk of that campaign. So just for me, I have 3 campaigns at the moment, but that's going to change. So I have digital marketing for beginners, the productivity campaign, which is an old campaign that I need to remove, and scale up, which is basically just an ongoing campaign. I'm always making content around how you can scale up and grow your business. So that that's really important for me. So yeah, this is basically how I capture my ideas. Notion also has a mobile app as well. So if you really want to, you can also download the mobile app and then access your idea bank wherever you go. And this just acts as like a living, breathing document, and it's always changing. I'm always updating it and making sure that it's adhering to my current needs in that time. And if you do decide to download the free template, which you can access by subscribing to my newsletter, you can access this template for free. And by having this template, you can basically use it as a mold and then add or remove bits of information that you find unnecessary. Now that we've actually gone over my idea bank, I wanted to show you how I actually use this document to essentially help me keep on track of my publication schedule. As I said, it kind of serves as like a mini content strategy document, and I've documented all the really necessary pieces of information that I need to just understand what it is that I'm doing, what my content pipeline looks like moving forward, what my actual goals are, and just also what my content pillars are as well, because that's really important to help me kind of prioritize my ideas. Just because I write something down in my idea bank, it does not mean that the idea will get used. It just means that it's there because, you know, it means that I've not wasted an idea and I've captured it, so I don't have to worry about losing any good ideas essentially. And obviously I also have goals and objectives too. So I've personally found it really useful to use the toggle list, which helps me to keep this living strategy document as clutter-free as possible. That's another really big bonus of why Notion is so effective. You can really optimize the formatting. And obviously I've also got another table here which shows buyer personas and things like that, and I've got multiple columns for multiple buyer personas. And then I also have what I personally feel are the most important bits of information to include there. You may have other bits of information on a more detailed strategy document, which I do have as well, but I just find this really helpful to have the key bits of my content strategy here so that I can remind myself what it is that I'm doing on a daily basis and how much content I essentially need to make. And that really helps me to manage my time better. This particular section right here, the content frequency section, has been super important for me too. It's just a very basic note, but it's actually really helped to solidify my content frequency, which has also helped to shape my editorial calendar moving forward. So as you can see, obviously I do the podcast once a week, and I've talked about on social media and things like that how I'm writing 2 blog posts a week as a kind of a challenge to myself to prove that I can do it and to prove to anyone that they can do it no matter what their skill level is or anything like that. And then I've put my Instagram schedule, so Instagram 6 to 7 days a week, Twitter multiple times a day. Twitter I kind of just tweet whenever I want, but I know that I need to do it multiple times a day, so that kind of makes sense to me. I know what that means. And then LinkedIn, ideally I'd like to post 4 or 5 times a week, and it's usually curated content. That being said, I don't always manage this because I still find LinkedIn quite intimidating, and I would particularly like to start leveraging the LinkedIn newsletter feature, but I also know that the newsletter is I personally struggle with just keeping up with that, I think, at the moment. So maybe I do that like more once a month and have that be a created piece of content where basically it's a compilation of all of the pieces of content that I've made from other channels, and I put that into LinkedIn and tell my followers and my connections about it. And then obviously I have my channels as well. So currently my main channels are website, podcast, social media marketing, and YouTube. But if you want to go more detailed into writing down exactly what social media channels you're using, then you can. And if you're doing email marketing or SEO, which I am also doing all of those things, so I need to write those down as well, then that's really important too. And then obviously I have my content pillars, and I know I've talked a lot about how you should have 3 content pillars at most, but for Megan Taylor Creative it's a bit different because it is a digital marketing agency, so I have a little bit more leeway with what kind of content I write about. I think as long as it pertains to the services that I'm offering, then that's okay. I don't think that's very overwhelming, but if you're an individual trying to manage an individual account, then that's a bit different. You will want to niche down a bit further. But with digital marketing agencies, especially full service ones like me, then I think that people are a lot more accepting and understand that there's a lot more that you're talking about and they're not going to get confused as easily. So yeah, this just really helps me to understand exactly what it is that I'm doing, and I can write down the detailed information that I need and just keep on track of it. So when I am going in and doing the nitty-gritty and managing the content calendar, I know exactly what it is that I need to include. So now that I've gone through how I actually manage to keep track and maintain my content consistency, let's look at the content strategy. This is typically where you're going to manage your actual ideas and categorize them. And also, it's the thing that really helps me maintain quality, because it's where I sometimes write pieces of content in here. I can include bits of media that I created in here, and then I can really understand whether I think a piece of content is actually good or not, and then whether I can repurpose it and how I can repurpose it. So to be honest, my quarterly content calendar is actually very basic. It's literally just the calendar property that you can insert into your Notion pages. And so if we go to April, we're currently on the 11th, and obviously you can see there's a big red circle which will show you exactly what date you're on, and if it goes back to any previous date, you can just click on the Today tab so that you can go straight to it. But let's go back to March and kind of show you an old piece of content I was working on. So this piece of content right here, as you can see, I've just clicked on it and it's gone straight to a new page, and that's because you can create separate pages. So this is where you would manage and construct the piece of content and structure your ideas for that piece of content specifically. And obviously I've got all of the properties that I included earlier. So I've got this particular piece was a blog post. I've got the deadline, which was March the 31st, and I did meet it. And then I've got the format, which was a resource and an ebook. And then I've also got the progress, and I need to change that and say it's done, because it is done, it's live now. And then I put specifically what campaign it's for, and then it wasn't an SEO piece specifically, so I essentially left out the keywords, but I might change that in the future if I want to optimize it. And then a live piece of content, and obviously you can see I've got a book plan, and you can just use the toggles to ensure that your screen isn't cluttered. So this is just essentially how I'm managing the content creation process. I'm just ensuring that all of my individual ideas are on one specific level, whilst I can also see the holistic view. So I can obviously see the content calendar on a bigger scale, and I know exactly what's coming up, but then I'll look on a smaller scale and I'll actually be able to plan that piece. And that's why Notion is so effective, and that's why I highly recommend using this template, because you can really start to manage your ideas. So as you can see as well, this is actually what I've been using to help me manage this video and plan this video. Obviously it's a podcast episode, it's obviously a YouTube video as well, and I've changed that it's progress so that it's in progress. Obviously I'm recording it right now, and then I've included the campaign, which is digital marketing for beginners, and the deadline, which will be the 14th of April, so the Friday, currently the 11th right now, and over the next few days I will edit that podcast. So yeah, that's mainly what I would do to help you manage your content from a pipeline perspective. And like I said, like I've been saying throughout the entirety of this video, if you did want to download this content calendar just as a framework and a springboard to help capture your ideas, then you can. It's free and you can get it in the description box below.